It's been so long since I made a top 10 video that honestly, I was just looking for an excuse to talk about some games I personally think are great, or at least very good. So let's go through and check out some great games I missed growing up. Quick bit of criteria before we begin. Since we're making picks of games that I missed growing up, I can't have played any of the games before the age of 16. Not long after is when I actively started game collecting, with the goal of trying to play everything I missed from my younger years. So with the rules established, let's kick things off with number 10. As a PlayStation guy growing up with the PS1 and 2, I am honestly surprised at just how many major releases I missed across both. One of the biggest has to be the Sly Cooper trilogy. I'd played Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, but those games were always advertised alongside each other. So it wasn't until much later I learned of a third platform collectathon pillar for the console. My favourite easily has to be the original game, simply because it is so simple. All of the levels are a joy to explore with gorgeous visuals and a bouncy soundtrack, and the gameplay offers a lot of variety while staying true to the genre. It makes you feel like a sneaky thief, and the next objective is always a pleasure to uncover. I'd never heard about God of War until the mid-7th generation of consoles. I saw some gameplay of what must have been the third game online, and I thought it looked fucking awesome. Just this dude going around fighting these giant monsters in bloody battles. So when I finally picked the original up and tried it, safe to say, I was really confused. Turns out, somewhere, I'd gotten Shadow of the Colossus mixed up with God of War. I mean, you still get to run around killing giant monsters, but it just wasn't the game I was expecting at all. Despite that, I really enjoyed my time with it. Certain areas had me confused, but overall, the addictive, monotonous, yet satisfying combat kept me hanging around. The character arcs across the story were also surprisingly intense and actually make you feel amidst all the bloodshed. While I'm yet to play the sequels, I am really looking forward to it after this. Looking back, I had access to a solid selection of SNES classics on my cousin's Nintendo. While I honestly didn't fully understand their relevance or who Mario was or any of that until I got a little older, there is one gem I didn't get to play: Super Castlevania 4. Given all the other games they owned were a lot more kid-friendly, it's no wonder they didn't have this. But what a shame, as it's easily a contender for one of my favourite games, not just on the system, but of all time. It's absolutely gorgeous, and despite its dark and creepy atmosphere, manages to be bright and colourful with so much depth to each and every screen. Combine that with a ripper soundtrack, and you've got a fucking whopper experience that only ages like fine wine. Seems my cousins were the only window I had into the world of Nintendo growing up. Playing their SNES, watching over their shoulders while they play their DSs for Christmas, and of course, seeing their boredom for the Nintendo Wii set in almost immediately. I only ever saw this console as a gimmicked motion control system built for titles like Wii Sports and nothing else. I couldn't fathom trying to play a normal game with this control scheme. until I tried Super Mario Galaxy. Now, that mindset of mine could have been forgotten a lot sooner, but I honestly don't recall my cousins owning this game back in the day. I could be wrong, of course, as I always wanted to play Wii Sports, but finally giving it a go, I'm blown away. It's hard to find the words to truly describe how it feels playing this game, and as an outsider in foreign territory, it's the first Mario game that's actually hooked me for the long run. Consistently wonderful level structure with a lot of unique and inventive mechanics, I love the soundtrack, and there is just so much to get lost in. I've got no more to say, honestly. If you want more, you can always check out my review of the game, but for now, all I can say is this is a hit, man. Speaking of Hitman, like a lot of people, the place I was most likely to discover new games was at a friend's house. I remember seeing a group of kids of all ages huddled around the TV, watching my friend's older brother play Hitman 2. I thought the premise was so cool, though I didn't really understand what the point of the game was, like a lot of the games I saw over there. But just the idea that you could sneak into a giant mansion dressed as someone else just really caught my attention. Keep in mind, I was still at the age of cartoony, fun sort of games, nothing all that realistic yet. So seeing him later trying to get through a security checkpoint without being caught, again, was such a new, fresh idea. I rented the game at the time, but couldn't get past the second level and hated it. Though it took me an entire decade or so to finally give it a second chance, I'm glad I did, as I found it to be an incredible experience. Lots of memorable scenarios and some interesting puzzles to figure out. While I'm still not good at it, that doesn't stop it being really enjoyable. As a huge fan of the Tony Hawk games, I was devastated to see the series decline so rapidly into mediocrity. But little did I know at the time, I was stuck in the past, stuck on older, inferior hardware, as the 7th gen version of Proving Ground is quite a return to form in my opinion. A semi-realistic approach we hadn't seen since Underground, the game that got me so invested in the first place. It offers a lot of fun, challenging missions over its 3 main playstyles. The true open world is so much better than those cages I was used to. The control is polished and hard to fault, but most importantly, I think it's just fucking fun. There is a lot to this game that's right up my alley, and even for the aspects that aren't as great, don't linger to become a problem. Again, the fact it took me an entire decade to finally try out the real version of this game is such a disappointment. Though on the flip side, it's probably what saved me from experiencing the following sequels. When I finally got my Xbox 360 back in the day, it was like an entirely new world was opened up to me. Quite literally, I didn't know where to start, but only a few months into it, I saw a trailer that made me go, wow, I need to play that. Then I saw the Naughty Dog logo, holy shit, that's my home team! And then I saw 2 words that broke my heart. PlayStation exclusive. I passed on the PS3 when they were new because I couldn't afford it, and when all my friends in high school played on 360, naturally I followed suit. But seeing that trailer made me think, I was looking in the wrong place. Now that I've finally played the entire trilogy, along with the fourth game, while I still prefer my Xbox, God, I was missing out all that time. The entire trilogy is great, and I honestly couldn't pick between 3 and 4 as my number 1 for the series. There is just so much quality here, it's unbelievable. All of these games are home to some of the best, fast-paced action and cinematic excellence not just PlayStation, but gaming as a whole has to offer. And I'm just glad that I finally got to experience it firsthand. One of my earliest gaming memories is being over at my cousin's house, different cousins by the way, watching them play Spyro the Dragon. I remember the massive hedge maze, and being told if I collect a gem, grabbing the numbers that fly out will net me extra points. I also remember looking out into the ice cavern and seeing the swamp area, just barely. I did get Spyro 2 when I was younger, but how did I never play the original? Or Year of the Dragon for that matter. With Crash Bandicoot, it was my mission to seek out and play every single game I possibly could. That's why I eventually bought a PS2, because my friend showed me Wrath of Cortex and I was like, whoa, I gotta try that. But how did I resist doing the same for Spyro? The back of my Crash Bash manual had an advertisement for Spyro 3, and being such a huge Tony Hawk fan, how did I resist the urge to seek it out? I'll never know. It's almost like I had this one great series I was so distracted with, I failed to even notice the second great series right there in front of me. I eventually did get another Spyro game with my PS2 that we don't speak of anymore. But it would take that same decade again before I'd ever get to try the missing games of that wonderful trilogy. With everything I just said about how I spent all my energy hunting down every single Crash Bandicoot game in existence, how did I never own a portable system growing up? I never really wanted a Game Boy or a DS or anything like that because I'd rather spend my money on PS1 and 2 games. Besides, there were no games on those systems that interested me. Now, fast forward to when I got my first computer and discovered the internet, and eventually YouTube, I started to find videos on games. In this moment was my first exposure to the Crash games on GBA, and specifically, Entranced, the dominant winner of the pack. I'd played Nitro Kart already and never knew who this guy was, so I was absolutely stunned to learn that he was introduced in his own game. So once I learned all of that, I'll repeat myself. How did I never own a portable gaming system? It wasn't until I discovered emulators much later on that I finally tried this game out. But given my history with the series and my primary mission to play all of them, how did it take me so long to finally give this a go? Of all the games you'd think I'd go out of my way to experience once I found out they existed, I am shocked that this, out of all of them, took me so long to play. Though, I can think of one that took me even longer. But before we take a look, here are some honourable mentions. actually had my PS2 for a couple of years before I discovered a demo disc that came with it, hidden away in all the instruction manuals. It's easily the best demo disc I've ever seen. So many trailers for games I'd go on to hold so close to my heart, along with demos for a bunch of different stuff. The simple fact I still haven't fully played all the games shown to me on this disc all these years later is such a crime. But one game stood out: Ratchet and Clank 2. The demo features the full Mactar Resort level, including all side areas, unlockable items, and every round of the battle arena that would make it to the final game. It even had the race course on planet Barlow. There is so much to do in this demo, and I used to play it so regularly for hours at a time. But much like Spyro, for some reason, I never tried looking for a copy of my own. I borrowed Up Your Arsenal off a cousin and played through most of that, but never until mid-2016 did I even play the second game. And I'd already owned it for 2 years prior to actually giving it a go. For all the games on this list I either tried or saw somebody else play first, the fact that my favourite game demo that I played almost every other week still didn't lead me to go out and buy the game for myself is utterly astounding to me. What the fuck is wrong with me? I'm like some kind of monster that, despite having quality at his fingertips, is blinded by the average and mediocre just out of reach. But in the end, I did get to experience Ratchet 2 along with all of the other games on this list, and while it would be a stretch to call all of them great, they were all at least well worth the wait. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video of me just recounting a decade of my life where I was apparently numb in the brain. But I'd like to hear some of the great games all of you guys missed growing up. So be sure to let me know with a comment down below, followed with liking, subscribing and sharing the video. I'm Square Eye Jack and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.